Hey guys, welcome to today's video, which is going to be an NFL draft first round reaction and review. Please like, subscribe and comment below what you made of your team's first round selection. Without a further ado, we'll jump into the video. With the first pick in the draft, the Bengals took quarterback Joe Burrow. I don't think this was a surprise to anyone, not to me at least, and I got this pick right, and the Bengals will certainly hope that they've got the best quarterback in this draft. With the second pick in the draft, the Redskins took Chase Young. Again, no surprises here. We all sort of knew for the last couple of months this was likely what the Redskins were going to do, so I got this pick right as well. I graded them an A+ because he's widely considered as the best player in the draft. With the third pick, the Lions took cornerback Jeff Okudah out of Ohio State. Again, most people saw this pick coming, so I got this one right as well. Graded them a B+ because they addressed a serious position of need. Could they possibly have traded down? Maybe, but if the offers weren't there, you can't blame them, and he should be a great player for them. With the fourth pick in the draft, the Giants took offensive tackle Andrew Thomas. I think some people were surprised, including me, that he was the first tackle taken off the board. I got this prediction wrong. I had one of the other tackles. Obviously, if he was the player they liked, there wasn't too much between them, so you can't say it was necessarily a bad pick. So I think a B is a fair grade. With the fifth pick in the draft, the Dolphins got Tua Tagovailoa. I got this pick right, and I gave them a B+. They'll be delighted to have got their quarterback that they wanted without having to trade up. So I think the Dolphins did well here. With the sixth pick in the draft, the Chargers took quarterback Justin Herbert. I got this pick right as well, as most people expected them to take a quarterback, but expected the two that most people considered to be Herbert to already be gone. I graded it a C+ because it was possibly a bit of a reach. Could the Chargers have looked at trading down and then taking him later in the first round? With the seventh pick in the draft, Rick Brown, I got this pick wrong. I was pretty certain that the Panthers were going to take Simmons here, so I was quite surprised. I've graded them a B because Brown's still a very good player, almost certainly the best defensive tackle in the class, at least on paper, so a good pick nonetheless. With the eighth pick in the draft, the Cardinals took Isaiah Simmons. I didn't get this pick right because, to be honest, I thought he might be off the board by this point. The Cardinals will be delighted that a player of his talent fell to them. Most people expected them to address offensive line or even wide receiver, but he was too great of a talent for them to pass up. With the ninth pick, the Jaguars took cornerback CJ Henderson. I'm not surprised that they addressed cornerback at some point in the first round, but to be honest, I more expected them to do it with their 20th pick later. And this was possibly a slight reach, but he's still a very talented player, so a B-. With the 10th pick, the Browns took offensive tackle Jedrick Wills. I thought this was a great pick by the Browns because they waited at 10, didn't trade up, nothing too aggressive, and got what many people considered the best tackle in the board. I got this pick wrong again, mostly because I expected Wills to be off the board by the time the Browns drafted at 10. With the 11th pick, the Jets took offensive tackle Mekhi Becton. I got this pick right. Wasn't surprised that the Jets addressed offensive linemen. They were possibly a tiny bit unfortunate that Wills got picked one pick before them because, in my opinion, he's a much better player. But we'll have to see a solid selection addressing a clear area of need. With the 12th pick, the Raiders took Henry Ruggs III. I was very pleased to get this pick right because I don't think many people saw Ruggs being the first wide receiver taken off the board. But as I said in my mock draft, the Raiders have always drafted unconventionally, and I think Gruden in particular, his eyes will have lit up at the sight of Ruggs' speed. So possibly a bit of a reach, which is why I gave them a C+. He possibly might have still been available at 19, but the Raiders got their man. With the 13th pick, the Buccaneers traded up with the 49ers to select offensive tackle Tristan Wirfs. I thought this was a good move by the Bucs. They clearly wanted Wirfs, thought he was the best lineman available by some distance. They were happy to trade up, not because they really thought the 49ers were going to take him, but to prevent a different team from trading up above them and taking him. So a good player, so an A-. Having traded down a spot, the 49ers took defensive tackle Javon Kinlaw. I really didn't see this one coming. I was almost certain that the 49ers were going to take a wide receiver, and it does make you question why they traded Buckner, because no matter what talent Kinlaw is, he's not going to be at Buckner's level for a couple of years, so a surprising pick here. However, Kinlaw's still a talent, so I gave them a B. With the 15th pick, the Broncos took wide receiver Jerry Jeudy. I got this pick right. I think the Broncos will be delighted because I sort of suspected that they probably feared that more receivers would have been taken off the board before they picked at 15, but he should be a great complement to Courtland Sutton. With the 16th pick, the Falcons took cornerback AJ Terrell out of Clemson. This was a slightly surprising pick, not that the Falcons took a defensive back, because clearly after losing Desmond Trufant they needed to address that, but I think they took Terrell slightly higher than most people expected. I still think he's a very talented player, so I think a B grade for this pick is fair. With the 17th pick, the Cowboys took wide receiver CeeDee Lamb. I thought this was a great pick for the Cowboys. I didn't get this pick right because I thought Lamb would be off the board by this point, so they'll be delighted to have taken what most people considered one of the top 2 receivers in this class, so a great pick for them at 17. With the 18th pick, the Dolphins took offensive tackle Austin Jackson out of USC. There was no surprise at all that the Dolphins took an offensive tackle here. My prediction was the wrong one. I think I had them taking Josh Jones, who ended up slipping into the 3rd round. A decent pick, obviously addressing an area of need, so I think a B- is a fair grade. The Raiders taking cornerback Damon Arnett at 19 was one of the biggest shocks of the first round, I thought. Ohio State had both of their starting cornerbacks from last year going in the top 20 picks, which is very impressive for them. I don't think many people had Arnett as a first round talent. The Raiders probably could have got him later. I don't think anyone predicted this pick, including me. C-, because we shouldn't judge him too early. He could turn into a great player. But yeah, a bit of a surprise that they took him this early. The Jags took K'Lavon Chaisson with the 20th pick of the draft. I graded this B+ because it addressed an area of need for them, and he was one of the most talented players left on the board. I didn't predict this right in my mock draft. I thought that the Jags might address cornerback with the 20th pick and defensive line with the 9th pick. Instead, they did it the other way around. But overall, a nice pick, I thought. With the 21st pick, the Eagles took wide receiver Jalen Reagor. Another surprising pick. I don't think anyone saw Reagor being taken before Justin Jefferson, but clearly the Eagles saw something that they liked about him. Apparently he had a really good pro day. I gave them a C grade because I do feel like there was a possibility that they took him a bit early, but if they thought he had the talent, I can understand why they pulled the trigger. With the 22nd pick, the Vikings took wide receiver Justin Jefferson. Thought this was a great pick for them. He could be a great replacement for Stephon Diggs. I think one thing they'll need to work out is that both him and Thielen take most of their snaps in the slot, so obviously one of them's probably going to have to move outside. But I don't think many people expected Jefferson to still be there at 22, so a great pick for the Vikings. So a B+. The Chargers traded up to 23 with the Patriots to take linebacker Kenneth Murray. I quite like the aggressiveness they showed. Linebacker, a clear position of need for the Chargers, so I liked what they did there. A B grade, I think, is fair overall. The Saints took Cesar Ruiz with the 24th pick. They sort of had the luxury of being able to take any position because they don't have any clear needs. I thought it was a solid pick, so a B- grade. With the 25th pick, the 49ers traded up with the Vikings to take wide receiver Brandon Ayuk. I thought this was quite a surprising move from the 49ers, considering that they had a choice of much better receivers with their earlier pick in the first round, so I wasn't particularly impressed with this, so only a C grade. The Packers traded up with the Dolphins to take quarterback Jordan Love. I think this was one of the most surprising moves of the whole first round, that the Packers, clearly needing to address skill positions on offense, most notably wide receiver, traded up and then took a quarterback, and you can't help but think that Aaron Rodgers will not be happy about that. And it does make you question how much longer he might stay in Green Bay. The Seahawks took linebacker Jordan Brooks out of Texas Tech with the 27th pick. I thought this was quite a surprising choice considering Patrick Queen was still on the board. Definitely rate Queen higher than Brooks. With the 28th pick, the Ravens took linebacker Patrick Queen. I thought this was a great pick for them, and I'm sure they were surprised that he was still available to them at 28. He should be a great replacement for CJ Mosley, who left last off-season, and he'll significantly bolster their front seven. With the 29th pick, the Titans took offensive tackle Isaiah Wilson. This did mean that both of Georgia's tackles went in the first round. I thought it wasn't a bad pick for the Titans because obviously they needed to address that position after Jack Conklin left in free agency. So a solid pick, and I gave them a B-. With the 30th pick, having traded down via the Packers, the Dolphins selected Noah out of Auburn. Not even going to try and say his last name. I think this was quite a surprise that he got taken in the first round because most people didn't consider him a first round talent, but they took a chance on him. And it was an interesting pick considering they have the two highest paid corners in the league already, so at best he'll be their third corner. This was another surprising pick as the Vikings took cornerback Jeff Gladney with the 31st overall pick. I don't think anyone saw so many cornerbacks being taken in the first round, and no safeties were taken either. I thought this was possibly a bit of a reach, so I gave them a C. The Chiefs taking Clyde Edwards-Helaire with the 32nd pick was a bit of a surprise. He was the first running back to go off the board, and that meant he was the only one taken in the first round. He wasn't considered by many to be in the top 3 running backs in this draft class, but the interesting thing about him was he'd had a relatively low workload in college compared to some of the other backs. He might be fresher, so I thought this was actually a decent pick. Overall, that gives me 8 out of 32 correct predictions for the first round. I did an alright job with all 8 of my correct predictions coming in the top 15, but it certainly becomes a lot harder once you reach the end of the first round. Thank you very much for watching. Please make sure you've liked and subscribed, and stay tuned for more of my videos.